So those of you who know me, you can have a celebration of social media, which is what a lot of events like this are about, or you can have me speak and put some skepticism out there. And I'm not going to be doing a slide presentation. I don't know if you have something you want to put up there that's lovely behind me or not. But when I was watching the previous presentation, one of the things that struck me was if we had this meeting 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there was a social media site that was not mentioned at all, which was MySpace. MySpace is now passé, right? MySpace still has millions of people who go there every day, but they go there for different reasons than it was originally conceived for, right? So there's a lot of music interaction going on MySpace. All of my poetry that I've ever published, I went to UC Santa Cruz, or so they tell me, yeah, a couple people from California. So all of my published poetry is up there, but I don't really go there very often anymore. And so one of the things that we have to be very careful about is watching trends. So my book, Listening to the Future, is all about the problems of watching trends. Because right now, as we saw the movement of social media, and we saw those charts of everything is going off the chart, the social media interaction is scaling at a rate that we've never seen, we can run the risk of following that and maybe following it over a cliff at sometimes, right? And that's one of the problems that we have with trends, because trends do not exist in a world by themselves. Trends exist in a complex set of social, economic, political, technological, and environmental factors, and we don't know, right? So if I did a word cloud of the previous presentation, one of the things that would show up in very big is time-starved, right? We don't have enough time and attention. Think about if we have this conference 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, are we seeing a pushback on social media? Are people trying to take their time back? And what does that mean for marketing? So when I look at scenarios and I look at the possible future way that people interact with each other, we have to keep that in mind, that we can watch this trend to the point that we're not watching other things. We run the risk, some of you may have seen my quick tweet on it, we run the risk of social media being the new spoon that we're staring into. Right? We have to be very careful about that. It does not mean that it is the wrong thing to use today. It does not mean that it doesn't have value, because to the adage of go where the fish are, it's where the fish are today. But do not presume that that's where the fish are going to be 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. So your media strategy, your engagement with customers has to be very cognizant of that. Another thing, so as Mike said, I'm flying to Canada. We also run the risk of thinking about expectations. When I get off the plane in Toronto, I'm going to be very disappointed if I don't get flowers. So we have to understand the messages that we're putting out there. And one of the fallacies that I've seen in a lot of marketing organizations and clients that I've talked to is they're creating social media departments or social media experts. Right? I have a background in knowledge management and collaboration, and years ago we used to do we'd have the knowledge management department because we thought knowledge was something new, right? Plato, Aristotle, all those, we think about technology trends. How many people know that Plato actually was ranted against the invention of writing because it was going to ruin people's brains? Right, so we go back, technology has always challenged us, right? But we have to be very careful when we think about the risk of disconnecting our channels, right? Social media is just another channel for communication. It is no different than meeting somebody at a retail kiosk. It's no different than calling somebody on the phone. It has some different characteristics to it, but it's still a customer touch. And so we have to think about, are we segmenting ourselves too much so that we don't actually have the synergy of those relationships? And I think that's a word that I would add to the previous presentation when we talk about trust, is that we also have to think about relationships. And what we're really trying to build are long-term relationships. We're trying to establish ways of creating longer-term loyalty with our customers through that trust. Now, as I said, I'm getting on a plane, and I'm a little worried about this because, Mike said 80 pounds ago. I picked up the other 80, so we're 160 pounds between us. I hope I'm not Kevin Smith when I get, right? So social media is good until you're Kevin Smith, right? Or you're Southwest Airlines, and you don't let Kevin have a seat because he's too large to sit in coach, right? We'll be happy to sell you another seat, Mr. Smith, but our policies, and then of course through the power and immediacy of social media, whipping out TweetDeck on your iPhone, you can immediately have a not good day for the PR department of some company. Right, and some of us have used that. One of the things that I talk about in the book is the rise of perhaps and again, there's a lot of uncertainty in these futures, the rise of citizen regulation. Right, and it was alluded to in terms of the voice of a blogger. Right, the internet amplifies. If you have somebody who is trusted and somebody who has a wide voice, the best friend you want on Twitter is Ashton Kutcher. The worst enemy you want on Twitter is probably Ashton Kutcher. Right, you don't want somebody who has that kind of following bringing up the downside of a business transaction or other kind of relationship. So we have to be careful about that. We also have to be careful about the presumptions that when we think about talking to that spoon, we also have to think about, are we really talking to all of our potential customers? Or are we going through a narrow lens of technology-savvy people? So I started teaching a class on long-range scenario planning at Bellevue Community College, or Bellevue College, sorry. To my colleagues back there, we have a number of people from Bellevue College. Some of you knew it as Bellevue Community College. It's now Bellevue College. And my course is on strategic leadership, how to think about the future, right? And I said, I'm not going to do journals. I'm not going to have them turn in handwritten assignments. We're going to use Twitter and Facebook. I have 28 students in my class. I had 3 of them who had Twitter accounts and about 4 who had Facebook accounts. They are millennials. They are not all connected, right? There were a range of reasons. Some of them were economic, some of them were access-oriented, some of them were, what are you kidding? I would never do Twitter. I don't have time to deal with Facebook, right? And so now I have people in my class who you think are your customers, who fall into your demographics that you're not talking to because they're not engaged in that media, right? I'm forcing them because it's an assignment. I'm forcing them to go and interact with Twitter. And some of them have actually been thankful for that. They say, this is cool. I didn't know that it was actually useful. I thought Twitter was just what people did for marketing purposes. And what they found out now is that if you go to #BCSL, you will find all of my lecture notes from my class. I go home, and as soon as I finish my class, I tweet everything that I just said in class. And so anybody who misses that gets to see it. I also have the class coming in and picking up, we're doing the future of learning and the future of education, and so they are finding websites. That's their assignment for this week. Find websites, and feel free to contribute. Websites about the future of education that they are posting with that hashtag, and then we're having a dialogue about that. And they're also hopefully becoming fans of the Listening to the Future book, which I have 3 copies of today that will be one of the drawings. Fan page for Listening to the Future. There's a dialogue on there about what's going on in 2020. So those are some things to think about. The other big issue that I want to raise is the one of economics and value. I've got the cover story, and I've got a couple issues of this as well. Social computing's elusive value.